There are moments in life where you have to wait on the biggest payoff of your career. Sometimes it'll be 3 days, sometimes it'll be 3 weeks, 3 years, 3 decades even. And there's times in your life where you may never see that payoff. Sometimes it's not a rivalry, you always get your butt kicked. In Joel Embiid's case, though, it took him 12 years, but he finally saw the payoff. It took him 12 years for one night, Saturday, May 2nd, in TD Garden, coming back down 3-1 and defeating the Boston Celtics as the 7th seed in the first round of the NBA playoffs. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to BoxInOne, a basketball podcast and content creation platform created by Roischand and Joachim, myself talking right now. There are 2 Game 7s tomorrow, but by the time you guys see this video, probably today, between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Toronto Raptors and the Detroit Pistons and the Orlando Magic. But the night belongs to the Philadelphia 76ers. After Joel Embiid had not won a playoff series against these Boston Celtics for so long in his career, he's never won it. He finally did it last night, or tonight at the time of recording this video. Joel Embiid, 34, 12, and 6, playing on an appendix, playing with leg injuries. I think it's safe to say the mental fortitude for Joel Embiid is just some of the greatest we've seen in the NBA history. Even in the post-game press conference, just aura farming. Yeah, I feel great. I was just faking it the whole time. Just being self-aware with the humor. There's so much to get into, but this really is just going to be warranted, justified, unbridled Joel Embiid glaze. Seeing what he's been through, seeing what he's come back from, loss of his brother, literally bleeding out the kneecaps to play in the next series, saying, all right, I got to do one more set of rehab because if I don't do it and show up for the fans, who's going to want to show up for me in my life? Just his mentality, his hunger, his tenacity, going from the Ben Simmons era to the James Harden era, coming up short against Kawhi Leonard in a Game 7 where they were favored to win, coming up short against the Boston Celtics in the semifinals where James Harden disappeared and Tatum dropped 51 on your dome, coming up short so many times against the Boston Celtics in these playoffs. Well, he did not come up short tonight. He has won the day, and they are going to play the New York Knicks next week in the next round of the NBA's Eastern Conference playoffs, that being the semifinals. There's not really much else to say from Philly's perspective. Edgecombe and Maxey as a backcourt duo, absolute insanity and explosion, and PG really mentoring Edgecombe has shown so much in this series time and time again, especially Edgecombe also stepping into that two-way role with Maxey being the more scoring guard and Edgecombe being the defensive guard. I think it's just really impressive looking at the Philadelphia 76ers in hindsight. I think a lot of us said Ace Bailey should have been the pick for Philly. Edgecombe didn't really make a lot of sense when you had McCain, Grimes, and Maxey. You let go of Jarrett McCain. Personally, I still don't agree with that decision. I think Quentin Grimes was the guy to let go, but Grimes still had some shining moments in this series off the bench, providing an offensive and defensive spark. But still, just incredible stuff from Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. When Tyrese Maxey got in his bag and got in his motor, he closed this game out. Nobody could guard him in the pick and roll. Pritchard couldn't guard him in isolation. Derek White couldn't guard him in isolation. He was finding the gaps, even if they were minuscule, getting to the basket, slashing, fouls, and ones, drawing bigs, kicking out, doing everything he needed to do. Paul George on his 36th birthday, probably one of the most disrespected superstars in NBA history. I understand he has that embarrassing 3-1 lead blown to the Denver Nuggets in the bubble, but when we look at a guy in Paul George coming back from a leg break, being top 3 in DPOY and MVP voting, a guy in Paul George who in the East was going to war with LeBron James 6 or 7 games every day in the East and in the playoffs. He was doing that night in and night out, going to war with the Celtics, with KG, Pierce, Rondo, Allen, going to war with New York, going to war with the Heat, with the Hawks. This is who Paul George was stacked against, with Danny Granger and George Hill being his second options and Lance Stevenson sometimes. That's not a diss to those guys, but his teams were not as good, and he still showed up and showed out and took games off of that Miami Heat team that would win championships. Paul George, he really only loses to champions when you think about it. He's had some not so shining moments, again, when he disappeared in that Game 6 against Utah, but in that 2021 Clippers run nobody talks about, where he took the Clippers to the first Western Conference Finals ever, nobody talks about that run. When Paul George was leading the team, led a 2-0 comeback versus Utah, led a 25-point game comeback in Game 6 with Terrence Mann to close out the series. Nobody talks about that. Took 2 games off the Phoenix Suns, who went to the championship and were 2 games away from winning the NBA Finals. Nobody talks about that for Paul George. Paul George ages normally. He might not age like a Steph, like a Durant, like a LeBron when it comes to still being able to be top 5, top 10, top 15 in the league at your age, but Paul George has some amazing moments in this series, including this game tonight, hitting timely shot after timely shot, silencing the Boston Celtics crowd. Nick Nurse, playoff riser, incredible job what he's done with Philadelphia, especially the cards he's been dealt. Philly, you were really gutsy to be down 3-1 and say, yo, let's do it. We're going to be back in TD Garden for Game 7, and then completing it, incredible stuff. And I'm just happy to see a sacrifice Joel Embiid made for his team not be in vain. To come back in Game 4 and drop 30 almost, and then Game 5 and Game 6 and Game 7, absolutely wear down the Boston Celtics and handle business. Absolutely incredible stuff, especially in the Game 4 where they got blown out, where Peyton Pritchard had 32 points, where the Boston Celtics shot 24-53 from the 3, tying a playoff record. That Boston Celtics, and still having the mental fortitude to come back and win. Just incredible stuff from the Philadelphia 76ers and Joel Embiid. Looking at the Boston Celtics side of things, honestly, not too much to say. This is an off year. I understand the narrative is going to switch now because they were 56-26 and were up 3-1. I understand that. No Jason Tatum in a Game 7, but they couldn't close out in Game 5 or Game 6. That is absolutely on the Boston Celtics, but still a lot of things to be proud of. Jaylen Brown showing he can lead the team. It's not Batman and Robin. It's Batman and Superman. Depending on the villain, depending on the role, both of them can be the top guys. Derek White, honestly, you got to go. If I'm the Boston Celtics, anybody not named Peyton Pritchard, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, I'm looking at you a little funny. You're a little bit under surveillance. You got guys like Gonzalez, Showerman, Harper Jr., who are all good bench pieces. You got Garza giving you good minutes. The Vucevic acquisition confuses me, especially since Simons, I think, would have been very useful in this series when a guy like Derek White, who is your only really other primary scoring guard, fell off the face of the earth until Game 7, and still he only played really good in about a half of Game 7 and then got shut down in the second half. I digress, though. So definitely some decisions for Brad Stevens to make, but I think in general, not too much to say for the Boston Celtics. Nothing to hang your hat over. It's very clear that this roster needs some changes, though. Maybe another big outside of Vucevic, another guard, which you had in Simons. But Vucevic was also averaging 25 and 12 at the time he got traded, so I understand getting tricked, Brad Stevens, and I also understand that maybe this team just needs a little bit more development time. This is not the end of the Boston Celtics. I think the fact that this is their first round exit since the 2021 series against the Nets says a lot just about how good this team has been over the course of the decade. Only 2 or 3 first round exits since drafting both of the Jays in 2017 and 2018 respectively. Nothing bad to say about the Celtics in terms of what their season was. They were a projected play-in team. To even have home court in the playoffs is absolutely incredible. To even be a team that was looking like a favorite to win the East in the series is absolutely incredible. Smart move to rest Jason Tatum. Honestly, there's no point in trying to risk re-injury. Kudos to the Boston Celtics medical staff for that. In all honesty, though, again, this is about the Philadelphia 76ers. I think this is a lot more just about the mental fortitude and tenacity and coaching and scoring abilities between Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and VJ Edgecombe, just showing up when it matters the most. Congrats to Philly. Looking forward to see how far they go in this NBA Eastern Conference this year. With that being said, though, guys, that is going to do it for us today. Again, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Follow us on all of our socials, whether it's TikTok, Twitter, X, Spotify, YouTube, where you're watching this video. Click that notification bell to get notified when we drop new content. Daily content for the playoffs is returning. And again, as always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we will see you all in the next one.